Well, hello, everybody.
How we doing?
It is Scotch for Dummies live on a Thursday night. Hello, everyone.
One of us is not like the other.
It's like watching a Zoom call. What's going on?
It's like the together mode or whatever on Zoom.
Drew, how you guys doing?
How you doing? How you doing?
Give him a wet willy over there.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see the fun, but Mark is remote tonight for us. He's actually down south somewhere. I don't know where he's at, somewhere south, and he's joining us remotely. And we superimposed him in the bar, so he kind of is sitting in the same seat and the correct height and everything.
Good deal.
But
Welcome
not
to
the
the
right
show.
outfit. Where's your shirt, man?
Yeah, why aren't you wearing a Scotch for Dummies shirt?
That's just poor planning.
Yeah, so because some of us had to walk down here, we had to wear the long sleeves because it's freezing right now and where we are in Indiana. So.
Well, I'm in Atlanta and it's not freezing.
Some people think you're AI right now. Can you like do a max headroom or something? All right, so let's get going here for the podcast. People will hang up on us. So tonight's show, Andrew, you are on deck tonight.
Yes. So today, what was the team? Climate change or whiskey? Which is sweating more?
That's right. Interesting.
So it's kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, but ultimately it is getting warm now, and except not in Indiana today, but
No.
the rest of the world, the rest of North America or Northern Hemisphere is warming up. It's becoming summer, so everybody changes their whiskey and whiskey making and whiskey tasting during the hotter months. So we're going to talk through some of that. What do you do when it's hot? What do you do to enjoy your whiskey? You know, there's a myth that people don't drink whiskey in the summer. Those guys are fools because you should be drinking whiskey. You may change what you're drinking. You may alter the pattern of drinking, but whiskey makers really have to go through that. So we'll talk through some of that and how warmer temperatures affect how whiskey makers make their whiskey, and we'll go through that. So
I'm excited about this topic.
we have trivia tonight.
We do have trivia tonight.
Yep.
We have the Patreon wheel tonight. We're going to use that as well for a few
right.
spins. But it is an interesting topic because you and I have had long conversations about this and just like open bottles and air and other things as well. Because I
did want to talk through that. Yeah.
I have like upstairs in my room, it gets hot sometimes because all the computers and crap. And I'm like, I asked you at one time, like, is this going to hurt it and stuff? So I'm curious in our conversations if we switch to, open bottles as well in that conversation.
Yeah. We should need to talk through that as well. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, and you started off, Andrew, with, obviously, North America summertime, but I mean, there are distilleries that deal with this year round when we talk about, Taiwanese and Indian and Texas whiskeys. So things are different there. And I think it's good to understand that, especially coming from our love of Scotland, where temperatures are pretty consistent. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think that's stable. If you think about what does a dunnage house in Scotland look like? It's about 50 degrees, about 75% humidity all year round. So it's a different business.
Sounds okay.
Well, for sure. And I mean, they deal with it, and we're not just talking about Scotch. We're talking whiskey in general. They deal with it in Kentucky, in the bourbon market, and Texas down. So it's interesting. I looked through your notes, and there's a lot that I guess I didn't know. So I'm excited to get into this and hear what you have to say.
I don't think this quite warrants Dr. Scotch, but we can talk through it anyway.
Oh, he may show up. You never know.
I hope you at least tapped him for some research.
Yeah, he's got some information here. So do you want to go through the who's online and see who's all there?
Yeah, let's say hi.
Hi, Brian.
You mentioned a new.
You met Brian,
new friend of ours.
Yeah. So welcome to the chat. Happy to see you.
Oh, cheers.
We've got a few people on. Steve Azong, Joe,
Loch Ness,
Malt Minion,
Everwin.
Good to see you, sir. Tom, happy Thursday to you too.
Stephen Rogers.
Yeah, he's got some SMWS. Nice. I'm going to follow it up here shortly.
Oh, my gosh. So I just checked So Drew is willing to let us kill this Pulling 21.
Sorry, Mark.
And this is the first sip I had of it. It is, wow.
It's really good.
I
had forgotten.
Oh, my gosh.
I had a Belvini Portwood week before. I hadn't had that in a long time either, and it was excellent. So this is taste of Taste of home.
Mark, we'll get you something
I
next
warmed
time,
up.
but go ahead.
I warmed up with the naked malt, right? I've been looking for it. I couldn't find this anywhere. Well, I found a bottle of it down here in Atlanta, $29, right? And I just, it's a single. I mean, it's a blended malt. I'm excited. Good little warm up dram. And then I poured that Tamdu Batch 5. Oh my God!
It stands up.
I mean, it was more than going to 11, right? It was like going to 15. I was like,
Well,
this
well,
is
As well it should be.
interestingly though, that the naked does. I mean, it pulls a punch. I mean, it doesn't. It doesn't pull a punch. It actually punches you pretty hard with that sherryness. So I'm imagining going from that to the Tamdu isn't like a huge jump.
just much more intense, I guess we'll say. I mean, the naked nose is wonderful. I forgot how great the nose was on it. You know, you're really malty and sweet and vanilla, but Tamdu just took it
Next
to
level.
the next hemisphere, man. I mean, it's I'm on another planet with this. It's really good. Thanks for talking me into opening it.
Heck yeah.
It wasn't hard.
So to wrap up, Brandon, welcome. Eric Waite's in there. Me, my wife, and whiskey. Me, myself, and whiskey. Me and my wife, and whiskey. And everyone, Donner Pass as well. Welcome, everyone. We
Good
are
to see
going to have a
everybody.
good show.
Yeah.
It's been a few weeks, so let's get started on something fun.
All right. So how does temperature affect whiskey making? Let's start out with that. So there's
With the
kind
making.
of whiskey making. So there's a lot that goes on with whiskey making. And the first thing that really temperatures are going to affect is that fermentation. So depending on the distillery, some will use like wooden washbacks, some will use temperature controlled vessels. And so depending on the country and depending on what your equipment is, the ambient temperature will affect fermentation. Because if you ferment too warm, you do get a lot of sometimes it's good, but it can go bad. So you get a lot more esters going on. But if it's really too hot, you get some fusel alcohols that give you kind of that baby vomit, some of that really not good flavors that run into it. So there are several distilleries that when it gets hot and if they don't have good temperature control, they just stop distilling or stop fermenting because they can't manage the temperature in their big fermenters.
Does it depend on the yeast strain that they're using?
It does to some extent, but ultimately, if you get above, yeast has an ideal temperature range of fermentation, and if you get above that, there are varieties that can handle warmer temperatures, but that's not your normal brewer
like you're
distiller.
brewing or distilling.
So you've got to balance that, and if it's tuned, like Four Roses has their 4 different yeasts that they use. And if you have dialed your yeasts into that level of complexity, the temperature is going to throw them off and it's going to mess your mash up.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
So that's the first thing. Keep your fermenters running. Distillation. So this one is as a chemical engineering background, this fermentation is, or the distillation is where it really hits. So it's all about temperature control as well. But when you're doing distillation, the top of the still, so especially when you're talking pot still, and this is primarily for pot still kind of design, that all that copper that's above the heating elements and that goes all the way up to the line arm, that is all essentially a reflux producer. So there's no insulation there, there's no cooling on there, but the air around it is actively cooling or is passively cooling that top dome and dish and spout of the still. So if you have like a cold 40-degree day in Scotland and you're distilling, you have pretty good heat transfer out the top of that still so thus you get more reflux, you get a cleaner whiskey. You typically will not have many oils coming over, those really heavy congeners. Because
they're hitting and getting condensed back into
exactly. They condense
still.
back down into the still.
Okay.
And then it essentially purifies the distillate as it goes up the stack. But if you have 95-degree day, you have less cooling on all that reflux. And so you could get more of those heavier compounds coming over into your whiskey. So you may have temperature controlled rooms, which helps. You may, again, adjust your fermentation schedule or your distillation schedule. Maybe you distill at night mostly to reduce some of that temperature effect. But that can be a major impact to the way the stills actually run.
Would it affect where you cut the whiskey? Like if you've got more of those heavy chemicals getting pulled over, would you make your cuts in a different area to like try and mitigate that a little bit?
It's going to depend on your cutting strategy. If you cut exclusively on specific gravity or still temperature, maybe not, because some of those, what you'll do is at the same temperature, you will carry different flavor components over into the distillate. Now, if you taste your whiskey, if they taste those cuts and they will stop it based on flavor, then you're fine. But your alcohol content is going to change a little then.
That's
because of the whiskey that's coming over. So it's an amazing art to making whiskey. If you have inconsistent temperatures and inconsistent environment,
temperature is really everything.
It is extremely important. Yes.
So realistically, you want to minimize the fluctuations in temperature throughout the entire process as much as possible, so that you have a consistent product.
That's the key.
From one batch to the next.
Any distillery that is making high volume whiskey, they want the exact same distillate every day. So they put the same distillate in their barrels, and so they can start with a consistent base. Now at that point, they can choose different barrels, or they can choose different aging locations or things like that to affect the subsequent flavor. But if you're not consistent, you don't know what you're putting in that barrel, and therefore you don't really know what kind of aging process you need to do to get to the flavor profile you want.
Okay.
It's really much more difficult. So a lot of them will just cut directly on especially if they've got climate conditioned still houses, then they just cut on percent alcohol and they're good to go.
Because then you don't have to worry about
You
it.
don't have to worry about it. Yep.
I think an interesting comment from Eric here. I think he said melting, but I think he said malting barley creates heat. So the summertime you have less on the malting floor because it's too hot.
Yeah, that's correct. As those kernels germinate, you've got they create heat, and that whole process, because you're turning it, you're trying to keep them at germination temperature. You don't want them to overheat, and or if it's temperature too cold, they won't germinate.
Right.
So there's some temperature issues there too, where you got to take.
Yeah, I didn't even bring that up. Yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah,
thanks, Eric.
So temperature in every stage of the process of making whiskey here so far.
It's a natural process, so yeah, it's tough.
Since we're talking temperature, does it matter temperature of the water in the wash bag when they initially
like you mean
put the malted barley to make the wort? Does it matter?
It definitely does. So if you're mashing at different temperatures, so that is a big deal in mashing your barley, because certain temperatures extract the sugar better. They'll activate the enzymes that break down the starch into sugars. And if you exceed that temperature range, you'll kill the enzymes and you won't extract the sugar.
Interesting.
So your yield goes down. So that's as important too. Now, typically those are done with really at much higher temperatures, like 80 degrees C or 70 degrees C. So they're less directly affected because you have a lot of thermal mass
you're
with
like
the water.
simmering them basically, right?
Yeah,
you're not boiling it, but
you're actively temperature controlling those because it's a hot temperature. But yes, if you are out of that, so that was when I used to brew beer a little bit. Getting that grain into the right temperature, when you take the cracked grains, put them in hot water and let them steep to get those enzymes going, to break those starches down. And that was a very tricky balance. And depending on when you cooled or when you heated, or you at the end of the wash, you would like use boiling water to bring it above the enzyme temperature to kill the enzymes, to wash that sugar out. That is not a trivial process. Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, Andrew, it sounds to me like it's like any manufacturing process where consistency really is key. You want to minimize variables, right? Keep those variables consistent. And once you, like, there was a comment here. Peter said in was it Tucson? I think Tucson and Phoenix closed this weekend because the temperature they stopped distilling because the outside temperature reached 105 plus degrees, and
Yes.
it got out of their control, and they had to shut down and say there's pointless of continuing the process because it's just going to ruin our process.
That's exactly right. So the fermentation process generates heat. So in the winter and fall and spring, it's fine. I mean, in Kentucky, my wife and I visited Wild Turkey, and they weren't fermenting because it was June or July and August, and it's just too hot. They don't have temperature control of their washbacks, and so and they're steel. They theoretically could jacket them, but they don't. So they just shut down their fermentation for a month. They do maintenance on the rigs and things like that during that time, but it's too hot. They really don't have good temperature control. It's too hot. So. Yeah.
So it seems like we're talking a lot of Scotland type stuff, but it does affect everywhere.
Oh,
everywhere. And I guess it really kind of, so far we're hitting the points on temperature affects every stage, and you still have more to talk through. Yep. But it's also one of those things where uncontrollables, like Mark just mentioned, et cetera. Like sometimes you're like, it's just too damn hot. I can't do anything about it. Whereas Scotland, I don't think, maybe with climate change, if you will, if you want to talk about that, like it could vary some things. Are we talking about simple degrees, like minimal degrees? Or are we talking big swing degrees that are going to be a big shutoff valve?
Generally, it's going to be bigger because you can adapt your ferment. You can choose different yeasts if you think it's going to be warm. You can heat your mash less so you're not boiling as rapidly in the still, so the reflux is about where you want it. You can adjust a little bit, but it's just a matter of these major swings. Now, Eric Wade has a good point in the comments that in Scotland, if you have droughts, then you don't have the water.
Yes,
which is water for cooling.
Would happen a lot, I think.
Water for just all the water that's required for making whiskey, because you think there's water in your whiskey, but that's such a small percentage of the amount of water you need for mashing, for washing all of your equipment. That uses way more water than the actual water that goes into the whiskey.
Right.
So the water is not a trivial thing. And thus, if climate change affects weather patterns that would then dry out certain regions, I don't know how Tucson does it in Phoenix because they don't have any water anyway, but they're able to pull enough water from somewhere. So
it's on the canals, man. They're importing.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. They're importing water. It's not local water.
So obviously temperature, different places, but I'm just going back to Scotland, for example. This may be a silly question, but like Islay, like with the peatiness and the strength of flavors, are they still affected by these swings as much as other places?
Well, they're on the west coast of Scotland, so they get a lot more wind and sea effect. So I think the temperature swings there would be less important. Or less dramatic, maybe I'll say.
But it feels like, I guess my point is, with the peat influence,
with the flavor compounds,
the flavor change that much because of the 10 degrees or maybe 20 degree, maybe even more.
The flavors of the whiskey should not change that much. By the time you get it through the aging process, well, and we haven't even talked about temperature effect on aging.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good segue.
Yeah, we know all the distilleries that are known for their high temperature, quick aging whiskeys based on where they live and how dry it is and how hot it is. So, India, Kentucky, Texas especially, well, even Tucson, the Southwest, wherever it's hot and dry and you have major temperature swings, especially, I think one thing unique about the Southwest is the temperature swings during the day. So you get 105 degrees during the day and then 50 degrees at night. And that swing is so dramatic.
That's normal, right?
Well,
yeah.
You don't really
or does it
get
just feel colder?
So because I lived in Phoenix for years, and in the wintertime, it would get down to like in the 80s, for a high. And at night, it would get chilly at night. Like you might have to put on, well, depending on how long you lived out there.
Get used to it.
Your first year, you were like wearing a T-shirt and like, it's awesome. And by year 2, your blood had thinned out and you're like, where's my winter jacket? It's freezing out here. It's 78, right? And you just can't help yourself. But in the summertime, once it cracks into the triple digits, it kind of stays there for like
a long time,
like months.
Even at night?
So it depends. Like when at the height of summer, like it can still stay in the like mid 90s.
Wow.
So it can be really hot overnight. It can get down into the 80s, but you're talking, it's 20, 30 degree swing. Sometimes it gets a little colder, but it's hot. So 90 degrees is when that feels like the cool of the evening.
Yeah, so you're pressurizing those casks and forcing that ethanol out because it's just so hot.
I mean, it's hot. So I would like to actually go out and tour some of the distilleries out there just to see how they mitigate some of that.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Right.
extreme temperatures, and places like India, how do you? It's too hot. You're gonna have to control for that somehow. Whether it's and we talked before the show that it might not be a climate controlled warehouse that's 70 degrees. It might be a 85, 90 degree climate control. Like it's taken the big major swing off.
Yeah, and we'll talk through a little bit of that of how whiskey manufacturers deal with that and how they can adapt to that fairly easily if they're willing to spend the money. They can get there, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Right.
So
next up.
Well, so with aging, a couple things here. Number one, the higher temperature, the faster the evaporation out of the cask. And if the higher the temperature, the more it changes the alcohol content. So in Kentucky and India, the high temperatures in Texas, high temperatures will actually upproof the whiskey because you're forcing you're actually forcing the molecules into the pores at such pressure that water flows through the pores of a cask faster than alcohol does. Whereas in in Scotland, it's the opposite.
Slower.
So you're not pressurizing your whiskey or pressurizing the cask. So ethanol is more volatile in that it will evaporate at a lower temperature, and so it will evaporate out of the whiskey, but it's not being forced into the pores of the wood under high pressure. So any tiny cracks in the barrel will allow the ethanol to evaporate because it is more volatile. So it's all about physics of the cask and physics of the temperature, whether you're forcing the liquid into the pores of the wood or you're evaporating it out through the cracks in the wood.
Interesting.
So how you do that makes a big difference.
That temperature, it directly affects evaporation though, right? Because you just said that water and alcohol evaporated at different temperatures.
They do. So what in that warm temperature, so if you've got a sealed cask and that high temperature, it does essentially vaporize the alcohol and pressurize the cask. And then you have what happens is all the water in the rest of the cask is pushed out. So in the bottom sides, ends of the cask, you're actually pushing the water out through the wood, even though the alcohol can only essentially push out through the angel share area, the headspace of the cask. So it's got a very small surface area for it to push out, but the water will push out the rest of the cask. It's really a bizarre kind of phenomena. Yeah. And so in high temperature areas, you do get more angel share because there is more evaporation and more liquid being pushed through the pores, water and alcohol, ethanol at those high temperatures. So, in Kentucky and India, you may have 10% angel share per year, where Scotland, it may be like 2%.
Right.
So these really hot climates
That's logical.
Yeah. And so again,
luckily they only have to age whiskey in India like 38 days.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And, yeah.
38 days. Be more specific, John.
In Texas, they age by week, not by year.
Yes, it's true. Well,
So-
I mean, so to people not knowing, I mean, a year in Scotland is like 8 years in India or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well, and that's a factor for controlling temperature too, right? I mean, we haven't gotten into the barrel thing, but the fact that they age so much faster in hotter
Yes.
climates.
Yeah, and so that's the thing you have to be careful about is those hotter climates also create all sorts of. It's a much more dynamic aging process. You think in Scotland you can throw it in a dunnage house and check it maybe 6 or 8 years later and see if it's coming along. Where in hotter regions, especially with these tall rick houses, the top of that rick house may be 10 degrees, 15 degrees higher than the first floor, and so those barrels are aging faster. So do you plan for that and pull 3, 6, and 9 year barrels based on where they are? Do you rotate your barrels based on that? It's a much more dynamic cask management strategy in warmer climates. You don't want to overage it because if you overage it, then you get all woody and it's all tannin and not where you want to be. So you have to be more aggressive. And I think we've seen that with the different distilleries we've been to.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's a hell of a pour there, Sean.
Well, you told me to.
I did. But
kill it?
You told me to.
it's delicious.
I wasn't gonna pour it. He was like, "What are you doing, man? Kill that thing."
I mean, you are the
Okay.
zebra hunter.
All right.
All right. So to summarize, warmer temperatures affect fermentation by getting a fruitier whiskey, but it can be a little bit off notes if you're not careful. A distillation requires tighter control, more cooling water for your condensers, and potentially changes in flavor due to the reflex in the still. You get faster maturation, and in those can have bolder flavors, but you also get more loss through angel share. Now, what we're doing today is about tasting.
Okay.
How does hot temperature taste? How do you taste your whiskey in warm temperatures? And what whiskeys do you want in warm temperatures?
I mean, mostly heavy peated.
Yeah, that's what I do too.
Right. That's good advice.
I'll tell you what. Normally at the start of spring and early summer, I'll switch to like lighter, fruitier, like Highlands and things like that. But I find by the time I get to like July and August, I'm like kind of missing my sherries and my peats, and I go looking for those. But I also think you're used to the temperatures by then.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I can handle it. It's fine.
Yeah, you're not sweating on your deck because
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on where you're at too. If you're in a nice cold air conditioning, sometimes
True.
Pete's okay. But yeah, I'm with you. Sometimes it's just give me the ex-bourbon, give me a little light fruit, nothing too heavy, nothing too complex, right?
Yeah, because warmer temperatures will increase the evaporation rate of certain volatiles in your whiskey, so it can intensify certain flavors. So if you are drinking a peated whiskey in the summer, it's going to be even more powerful, more potent than what you would expect in a cooler climate. So if you have lightly peated whiskeys, those might be what you want to do for the winter, because if you're drinking like a Lafroig 10 in the summer, you're just going to be knocked out. It's just not going to be balanced right, and it may not taste like you want it to.
I mean, if you're at a campfire and in a tent, and fishing,
but again,
and cigar in your mouth, I don't know.
That's at night. It's cooled off a little, all that
Talking
kind of
from
stuff.
experience,
Yeah,
boys.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely fair. So
You've been up late drinking beer all day.
That's right.
keep that in mind when you're drinking a whiskey, that it can enhance. Now, there are things to do, and then this is part of the discussion that we'll go through. Is what do you do to adjust your whiskey taste? We already talked a little bit about you maybe pick different whiskeys during that time of the year, because So I will say one of the things that I am not a big fan of light, delicate whiskeys generally, but in the summer, because it intensifies those flavors, they work better for me. So I can pick up more of those intense flavors.
So you're more in tune to the nuances versus in the winter.
Exactly.
Right?
It brings those flavors up better to align with my palate.
Kind of like, when you're wanting to cool down that gin and tonic, some little bit of lime, it just hits.
It does.
Well,
am I right, Mark?
I was actually thinking it's the difference
Keeps me right in the slot.
when we started and we were drinking with ice balls.
That's
And
true,
we
right.
weren't getting all of the flavor profile out of that whiskey
Right.
because it was too cold. And so now that we drink neat, you get access to more of the flavors and the volatiles.
That's correct. So yeah, so to get the flavor, the whiskey where you want it, there are options. You could add ice balls in the summer, so that will bring some of that down. Now it does dilute whiskey as an ice melt. There are also considerations for like whiskey stones and whiskey cubes that are like stone that you put in the freezer and then you can drop in your whiskey, and that might be a good way to kind of
Chill.
Generally, I don't think
Chill,
those
yeah.
add as much temperature change in a normal whiskey. But if you're only wanting to bring it down a few degrees to get it more into your palate for summer drinking, that may be a good option.
It may not be fair to say this, but it does seem like to me that a lot of people that start their journey into whiskey usually start off with a cold factor of their whiskey. And I think a lot of it is, and I had this conversation recently with some people, and it's like, it's so easy to mistake the ABV for hotness and other things, pepper and other things like that. And some reason cooling it down feels like it brings that edge off. And I can
does.
get that, right? But also, once you get past that point where it doesn't burn anymore, then you're like numb to it. Then you're like, you can bypass it. So I get the point of struggling at first. And the ice ball, the ice ball is just easy. Plus, it waters it down too, so it also brings the ABV down.
It does.
But the stones, it's just a temperature thing. So that's a better way to do it if you just want cold.
Yeah.
Is that why White Walker wants you to put it in the freezer to take the edge off? Is that what you're saying?
Something like that.
Yes, it reduces the acetone note.
I think that was all marketing and
not.
the whole ice White Walker BS.
It does not reduce the acetone at all.
Did you take your sample of White Walker? Because you have to drink after bringing that up.
Thank the Lord, I did not. I do not have a sample of White Walker.
It somehow, when it was cold, made it like syrupy. And I've never. I don't keep whiskey in the freezer, but it shouldn't be syrupy. That just seems weird.
Ironically, we've had a couple of super chat Walker drinks, and it's not as horrible as I remember it was.
I think this bottle is tired. I think it's evaporated out.
Is it oxidized?
Yeah, it's oxidized and it's evaporated all the acetone out of it, or a good portion of the acetone. I'm not gonna say all of it, but
don't do it. Don't do it, Sean.
Still smells like acetone.
Still smells like acetone.
Look at him put it out there for everybody to enjoy.
It's not good. Yeah, this is horrible.
Are you feeling left out here, Mark?
It's not as bad as I
wish I had more hands.
Me too.
What a 5-figure say to the face. So what's next, Andrew?
So the other thing about drinking whiskey in the cold is what glassware do you use? So we're drinking out of these either Copita glasses or Glencairns, and those are great for concentrating the aromas. But if it's putting off too much aroma, maybe you need to run to one of those, a tumbler, something that will not intensify that aroma as much. It also allows you to drop a rock in there if you want to.
Pint glass?
Yeah, pint glass.
A pint glass. Whiskey glass, pint glass. Or Sean's video of how to drink whiskey from a beer mug.
I think, yeah.
That's
a fun video.
Awesome.
That's a good video.
If you have not seen that video, go back to like 8 years ago when Sean did a video on glassware.
It was our glassware video, and Sean came in and drank a whole pint of whiskey. Then
that was
twice,
so
I think.
Awesome.
He's a master.
Like I was a Russian.
Exactly. Also, where you're tasting is a problem. If you're in direct sunlight and the bottle's in direct sunlight and everything's getting hot and smoking up, it's just not the best way to enjoy whiskey. So go under shade, keep the bottle inside or something to keep it cool off, and then you can enjoy your whiskey better.
I mean, I think most of us feel the same way. If you're outside and you're sweating and stuff, I'm not reaching for a whiskey. I'm most likely not reaching for a whiskey. I'm going for a cold beer, a gin and tonic, something like that.
Yes. So everyone put a comment in there that I never drink single malts for refreshment. That's when mixed drinks are for.
Right.
And that's true. If you still like whiskey, do an old fashioned. Do a Rob Roy. Isn't that with Scotch?
Mm-hmm. Scotch and soda.
Yeah, Scotch and soda. Those are great. Now, don't use your $200 bottle of whiskey for that. But there's a lot of good whiskeys out there that are designed for mixing. And those make great summer drinks. Refreshing, great.
So we've got a question up there. What would be a good summer scotch? Can you pick a good summer
That's a
scotch?
great question. What'd you say, Mark? Oh, you're saying his name?
I was reading the person that put the comment up there, J.K. Benton, because I read it as well. And that's a good question.
The thing that always pops in my mind is Kilchoman Makir Bay. It's light.
Somebody else mentioned Japanese whiskey earlier.
It's lemony.
It's not Japanese whiskey, but
it's just a great summer dram. anything that's a light floral. Maybe you get like a Daluane or some of those lighter floral. Even one you can get is Glenmorangie Original.
Yeah.
Now, because those are light and sweet and floral, and those are great summer. You put a little bit of ice on there, or maybe some water. Great sipping whiskey for the summer.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I was trying to. All I'm coming up with is sherried whiskeys, and I'm like, that's not gonna
it's got to be an ex-bourbon.
It's got to be something light,
like Compass Box, Orchard Fruit, things like
that.
that.
Yeah,
those
that would be a great pick,
right?
And that would be a good one for a Scotch and soda, or just straight like that.
Well,
that's a great one.
And like Ardnamurkins, those are coming out pretty light and pretty floral. So those would be ones you could use as well.
Anything is
I think
bright and
affordable
fruity.
Spayburn. Remember that? I think it's
Oh
Spayburn
yeah.
10.
Yeah.
That rings a bell.
What else we got?
Definitely
over
nothing
here?
that's heavy. And our sherry bombs are the heavy peats. I'm with you, Sean. I'll always miss those and come back to them no matter what time of the year it is. But man, in the heat of the day, something that's just light, fruity, and ex-bourbon is really all I want.
I think you get the
What are
Glenfiddichs, you get your Balvinis, you get into even some Dalmors, but anything that's just bright and fruity or light to me is where I'm going to. Right, I am not going for a huge sherry bomb. I mean, if you pour me Glenlivet or something, if it's really fruity, I'll drink it. But I'm going for something nice and light and easy. Ex-bourbon.
I had
Which
some Nectar d'Or the other day. That would be a good one.
Yeah,
That's
So let's not
cask.
discount our Irish friends.
Oh yeah,
You get into the triple distills and they become much lighter and they're definitely good in summer.
absolutely,
definitely.
yeah, for sure.
And then we have to follow Tom. A good summer Scotch is rum.
Yeah.
And rum is a great
course Tom would
alternative for
say that.
summer. Yeah, of course you would say that. And I love it. It's true because we're very whiskey focused here, but you're right. There are lots of other spirits
Yeah,
that are great.
Glenmorangie in the chat. Chat saying
Auchentoshan, yeah, that's one that actually
Chatham
some
10,
they
good.
recommended.
Yeah, Glenlivet, the rum cask is delicious, especially the 21-year-old. That's really good.
Some Cavalons, some of these Auchentoshan, Glenmoe Original, yeah, that's a good one too.
Buna 12. Buna 12 is actually it's right in the middle, I think. It's got a little bit of a sherryness to it and chocolate note to it. It's almost like a dessert, but it's right there in the bubble for me as a summer Scotch, I think.
I agree.
Honestly, when I think about summertime whiskeys as well, I'm not that I do like cask strength whiskeys, but that the 40s and 43s, maybe up to 46s, seem to be a little bit more refreshing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing
Not
wrong with that.
necessarily. Yeah, you can get away with a cask strength one as well. I'm
Oh.
just saying that if you have a preference.
Ball Blair.
Oh, Ball Blair is really nice. That's a really nice light. It's the problem with Ball Blair is you can't find it.
I got one.
That's good, Sean.
Aren't you special?
I brought the orange
Proud of you.
one and the orange one.
Dang right.
Orange
That's
whip.
all I got left.
Orange whip. Wow, so we went quickly into the temperature climate thing. And so I guess I always knew about that from the maturation. But that's why I generally think of temperature swings and warehousing and stuff. But I didn't think about it so much as to actually on the floor, like the machines and things like that, other than the cooling jackets and stuff you have to do. But I didn't think about I always generally think towards Scotch and Ireland, some stuff like the Ireland, but like American stuff in Texas and India, I would think that's a bigger game to play on the temperature zone because it swings so fast.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing now is a lot of distilleries are I don't know if they're preparing for climate change, but they realize there's value in controlling things more. So some of the things that distilleries can do to manage this is essentially put cooling jackets on all their equipment and climate control the still houses. And if you do that, and it doesn't need to be a perfect temperature. You don't need to have plus or minus 65 degrees to 72 degrees Fahrenheit temperature control. You just need to kind of keep it temperate and keep it controlled. So winter is similar to summer. And jacket control so if you put temperature cooling jackets on your fermenters, and so that way you can really dial in those fermenters. So they're creating the same ester profile, the same aldehydes, all those flavors that are coming out in that fermentation that you really want to keep. You can dial those in perfectly. Now it's more expensive though, because you have to have a cooling system. You have to pay essentially to double wall all your tanks because you need to have a temperature control jacket.
But is it actually more expensive if you're getting a more consistent product and you're not having to lose product because you have inconsistencies that don't fit with your profile?
Plus you can manufacture all year round. So you have some additional variable expense because of the cost of energy, but yeah.
Sure.
A couple of things on that. I hear what you're saying, Sean. It's a tough game to play though in whiskey because it's such a long game, right? So it's hard to even quantify the cost savings or or just downright cost, because, you're doing something that you're not going to realize for minimum 3 years, and sometimes longer, in most cases longer. I would say that if you're a distillery that's trying to at least minimize the effect of those months where it gets real hot, you fall back on like what Eric Waite said, and you schedule your downtime there for your maintenance. You got to have maintenance throughout the year, so pick the time when you're probably going to be shut down for temperature anyway, and look for cost savings and efficiencies in your distillery in that manner. Because I can't imagine that those jackets are cheap for your equipment stuff. And look, I mean, you can run your AC 24/7, but when you get the bill, you know. So it's interesting to see if they can put a number on that cost or savings, if because it's such a long game in whiskey. You distill it today, you're not realizing the dollar on that whiskey for 3 to 12 to maybe longer years.
Yeah. So most distillers that are starting out, they're not going to be running 24/7 operations. They can make more whiskey than they need to sell, that they can afford to make. They can't afford all the grains to run 24/7 when you're young whiskey. So you're gonna cut, and single walled fermenters are almost half price compared to a jacketed thing. Plus the energy costs, plus the pumps and all those kind of things that have to occur to keep those jackets working. It is not a trivial expense. And so if you're starting out new, you're not going to do that. And that's okay, because I only need to run 6 months out of the year to produce enough whiskey. So I'll shut down in the summer, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but then you get into your Jack Daniels, your Makers, your Jim Beams, that they're cranking, baby. They're
well,
running.
And you've seen pictures of Macallan's new distillery. That is all computer controlled, automated systems. That is automated to the T. Every batch coming out of those stills is exactly the same as the previous ones, because they are dialed in for high volume whiskey making.
Right.
I think it changes too based on your maturation time, because over here in Kentucky and stuff, your maturation time is not 3 years. It's usually less than that, or sometimes right there. But Scotch is a lot longer, so you got to play that game a little bit too.
Yeah, and so if you got high temperatures for the whiskey making process, then the aging process is the same. You can adjust things. You can build more dunnage houses. You can do underground storage to help bring some of those temperature effects down. You can rotate your whiskey or rotate your barrels, as we said before. Yeah. And again, the temperature controlled warehouses. So that's a really I don't know the affordability. I don't know how much it costs to heat and cool a warehouse like that. But if you use proper insulation and you're willing to allow it to swing from 45 degrees in the winter to 85 or 90 degrees in the summer, that takes those 120 degree temperatures out of the equation and gets you a much more consistent temperature that you can monitor.
So let me ask you, and I don't know if you put this in there or not, but when they're doing the bottling, when you're pulling casks out, do they need to let those rest or come to a certain temperature, do you think? Because I was thinking when you were talking about the pressurization of the barrel, if you've got a barrel under pressure and a lot of the liquid is pushed into the wood, if you're dumping out liquid, you're not getting all of that out, correct?
Correct. And that brings up a discussion that we had with Amanda at Virginia Distilling, that they, when you pull barrels, depending on the time of year, you pull barrels into a moderate temperature area to allow the whiskey to kind of to settle down and to normalize in the barrel. Because if it's cold, you have certain conditions. If it's too hot, you need to let it depressurize. You need to let it squeeze out of the wood to try and get appropriate volumes and things. Yeah.
So moral to the story tonight is, when you're opening your bottle of whatever it is, and you're appreciating, you're pouring it neat, and you're drinking it, letting it air out, and you're room temperature, and you're letting it go down and enjoy your whiskey. Think about all the nuances that went into making this. Not just the actual malting and other things, just the temperature, how much it goes into the actual whiskey making. There's so many things, you've mentioned, I mean, you went through a ton of stuff, and it's just one of those things where, we take for granted for a little bit. But these guys, I mean, these people do this for a job all the time. They know the ins and outs of this, obviously, but there's so much to take in effect, just like any job we do. But whiskey's a tricky beast, and temperature is a major part of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want your Boone 12 to taste the same every year for 20 years, good luck, because the not only does the temperature change, but your grains change, your barrels change. You're getting barrels from different parts of the country, and they, this stand of trees is now exhausted, so we're going to move over here to get these trees, and they're on a different slope. It is amazing that any distillery can try and blend into a consistent flavor profile over the course of 10 or 15 years. Amazing.
Wow.
There you go.
I thought that for you, by the way. This is something you're going to want next. Interesting topic. I like it.
Oh, that's a peanut.
I think it's time to move on to something more fun, and maybe temperatures in there.
This is fun.
Oh. It's a little fun.
It's a little fun.
I like it.
Mark, you want to do some trivia with us tonight?
This isn't fun.
So are we playing for
whiskey making?
Are we playing for shots of White Walker? Is that what's going on?
No.
Sure, let's do that, Sean. You're going to have to take mine.
Yeah, Sean gets to drink Mark's at least.
All right,
that
Mark,
doesn't seem fair
I'll
at
let
all.
you go first.
Oh, all right. It's hard for me to read because it's blurry on my screen. It's pixelated.
You want me to read for you?
How long does it take for alcohol
creation
to
complete during fermentation? A, 72 hours. B, 45 to 50 hours. C, 100 hours. Or D, 30 hours. Oh, it came in clear for me to finish that. So how long does it take for alcohol creation to complete during fermentation? 72, 45 to 50, 100, or 30?
That's funny.
So this is an interesting question because oftentimes distilleries will say, no, we do a slow fermentation, so we take longer. And, so in manufacturing, we do fermentation of yeasts and E. coli and other things. And it's amazing what you can do with different fermentations is that we have some fermentations that we run where we run at a certain temperature just to increase cell mass. And then we change the temperature and the cells will start producing product. So you can actually make cells do things. Now, yeasts are a little more simplistic. So
are you giving away the answer here?
That's terrifying, though.
So,
it is amazing what you can do.
I'm going to take a guess, and the only reason I'm going to give a reason why I'm guessing it, because it doesn't seem like a lot of people in the comments are saying this, but I was going to say B, just because it's the only one that had a range.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, so alcohol is produced precisely at 72 hours.
Well, that's when the yeast all kill themselves.
That's correct.
I'm going with B as well.
Jeffrey Epstein, man. I'll be down. Who knew?
There you go.
Okay, well, let's see what the answer is.
And the answer is
B.
Whoa,
B.
What do you know?
48 to 50 hours.
No alcohol is created after 48 to 50 hours of fermentation, but many distilleries allow the fermentation to continue longer, 70 plus hours, if they desire fruity or grassy flavors that take longer to develop.
Correct.
Interesting.
So what's going on, Andrew, in those extra 22 hours? If it's really completed in 50 hours, why let it keep going for another day?
So there's multiple metabolic cycles within a yeast cell. When you have plenty of sugar, they make alcohol. But when they don't have sugar and they have to start consuming themselves, or they're dying, or they're using protein for energy or things like that, they'll produce lactic acid, they'll produce esters and aldehydes and things that are byproducts of different energy cycles within the cells. Plus, Stuff for Work had a comment there that yeast only live for 90 to 120 minutes, which is true as well, that once they divide, they continue to divide over the course of their life and then will die out. So as the cells die, they add other cell debris to the mix that then can be used by other yeast for food, but it's not as alcohol producing as sugar is.
There you go.
Yep.
But all of those things that you just said affect the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely they do. a slow fermentation.
Okay.
Now, admittedly, the 48 to 50 hours depends on the temperature, and there's an ideal condition there. And if you do it a little cooler, then 72 hours may be more appropriate. But
I have a
good
perfect
answer.
word for this.
Drew's on question
Nerds.
three.
Nerds. Good
That's
Lord.
my pie.
All right, I got this one. What country does not produce a single malt whiskey? Austria, Iceland, Mexico, or South Africa?
Does not produce
Produce a single malt whiskey. That's interesting.
Do they not produce a single malt whiskey, or do they not produce a single malt whiskey?
It says produce a single malt whiskey. I did not write the questions or the answers. This is my trivia team. I'm going to go with C in this one. I feel like it's C.
Go with C too. I'm feeling it, man.
They do produce some. I had some good beer actually from Mexico last weekend.
I'm going to say A.
That's I'm feeling A too. Weirdly enough. That is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Austria is great. Well, they're not great for their beer, but it's a light. They generate light beers, but so it means that they have malts. Why wouldn't you just distill it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Bring
got
it
some
home,
C's.
Drew.
Chat saying C.
Maybe
All right.
it is Mexico. It's just too hot.
Let's see what it is.
Wait.
That is Mexico.
Mexico it is.
You're right. What does it say
Iceland's most well-known single malt name is
Floki.
Floki, after a Norwegian explorer who was one of the first people to visit Iceland. The same company also has a sheep dung smoked whiskey. That sounds
Yum.
gross.
Wow.
But more power to you.
You're going to stick with your rotting plant matter
That's-
smoked whiskey?
Hey, it doesn't smell like poop.
Oh.
All right, Andrew.
Good time. Which Scottish whiskey company owns a U.S. distillery and blended bourbon brand? A. Gordon MacPhail. B. Ian MacLeod Distillers. C. Inverhouse Distillers. Or D. William Grant and Sons. So Scottish whiskey company
that's
that owns
tough.
a distillery and a blended bourbon.
That is tough. I don't know. I don't. I mean,
I like B here.
You like Ian MacLeod?
Yeah. Clan McLeod.
There can be only one.
Clan McLeod.
How many times? I think at
It's a
least
terrible movie.
I still remember sitting at Sean's house saying, "You never saw that." We had to get it on immediately so he could watch it. And he was like, "It sucks." No, I mean, I was just gonna say, Sean, at least once a month we talk about there can only be one.
It could be only one.
Classic. It's classic.
So we've got B's and D's.
Chat's all over the place so
and-
far.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
I'm going with I don't even know,
I
honestly.
got to go with William Grant because I don't know why.
I'm gonna go with A.
I'm going to go C.
No,
How about that?
One for each of us.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's see who's right.
All right. The answer is
William Grant and Sons.
Grant. Good
Billy
guess.
Grant. Oh, man.
Distillery,
That can be
Tuthill Town or Hudson Whiskey. The bourbon brand is Fistful of Bourbon, which has very little public information about how it is made and retails for $26.
Hudson
It's
whiskey.
my favorite kind of whiskey.
It's
We're
used
not going to
clean
tell you anything
toilets.
about it. But it is only $26.
$26.
All right.
All right, lay it on me.
Cheap toilet cleaner.
Question 4. Which Scotch distillery has released a quadruple distilled
Ooh.
whiskey?
Ooh.
A. Bruichladdich, B. Glenmorangie, C. Macallan, or D. Mortlock? Isn't
I have no clue.
is Mortlock the one that does like the 2 and 5/8 or
It's
whatever?
2.86 or some shit like that.
Yeah. That one's bold.
Well, that tells me that they're putting their heads and their tails back into the still to run it again just to get a little more.
Well, they're putting something back in their
Don't you
tails.
badmouth Mortlock now.
I'm down.
No one's.
This
I don't know
sounds
what
like
to
a
say here.
Bruichladdich kind of thing. Is that just me?
It doesn't
Quad-
sound like a McKellen thing, I can tell you that.
It also
No.
doesn't sound like a Glenmorangie thing. They love their one
No.
still.
Right.
It's
Like I
not
said,
Macallan. There's no way it's Macallan. It's not
I think
Glenmorangie.
Bruichladdich the play here
I
because
think so,
Mortlock
too.
is proud of their 2.83 or 86 or whatever. So
I'm with
That's
you,
not
Sean.
a real thing.
I'm going Bruichladdich as well.
looks like A is pretty common in the.
All right,
the,
let's see
Yeah.
what we got here.
Let's see
what
what
did
we
you
got.
say, Mark?
I'm going A, the Bruichladdich.
We got it right.
There you go. It was called the X4 Plus 3 and was originally released in 2008 as an unaged spirit, X4, then re-released as a 3-year-old whiskey after aging.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that idea.
That's cool, actually.
I like the unaged.
It reminds me of
That's cool.
X gonna give it to you.
That's a
What was
cool
that?
bottle, man.
Because you know it probably does. If that unaged spirit, it'll kick you.
I
We
would
need to-
like to taste it.
I want to find a bottle of this. Maybe on the auction or something. We need to find a bottle. This would be cool to try. I'm very interested.
Body X4. Okay.
That would be.
You know who has a bottle of this?
Jeff Teamy.
You goddamn right he does. You know
He's got both of them.
He's got like it's right.
Oh, yeah. I've got 3 of each of those. Yeah.
Where is he at tonight? He's not here. All right, Mark, you're up. Can you read it?
Which American distillery practiced a
Perfected?
technique perfected a technique for maturing whiskey to
Tasting.
I don't know
Tasting,
tasting
like a
like-
highly aged spirit, but in only
but
6
in
days.
only 6 days. And no, it's too blurry for me to read. No, hang on. I can get to the rest
I
of that.
got
I'm
you.
watching it on the chat. It's caught up. A. Blinking Owl Distillery. B. Lost Spirits Distillery. C. Montana Distillery. Or D. Topo Distillery.
This is a weird question.
Interestingly enough, I can't say I've heard of any of these. So, which American distillery perfected a technique from maturing whiskey to tasting like a highly aged spirit, but in only 6
Oh, this sounds
days?
like Glyph. Trying to
Yeah, it does.
formulate
I remember that.
aged whiskey.
I don't know Topo Distillery, but something with an acronym name sounds like the kind of place that would do a
Mm-hmm.
highly
That's what
aged
I'm
spirit in
thinking,
6
too.
days. Is that just me?
I think you might
That's
be
my
right.
Nope.
thought, too. I think D. Man, everybody
That's the
else
one
is
that
saying,
sticks out as the oddball here for sure.
Yeah, luckily it wasn't Glyph. Glyph tried to put their flavor components in neutral spirit and did
Yeah.
a terrible job.
They
of
weren't
it.
even trying to age that shit.
No. No. Yeah, highly
Oh.
aged is a loaded term because basically they're vibrating or forcing or irradiating it to make it pull the.
Vibrating the spirit.
No, they were. I think it has to do with sound waves and things to get it to
You're
penetrate
thinking
into
of
the
that
wood. And,
Metallica whiskey that they age with Metallica blaring in the Dunge house.
yeah.
That's a true statement, actually. What's your guys' pick?
I'm
What
going
you
to
guys
go
going
with D. I like
You're going
D.
with D?
Oh, lots of bees coming up though.
Yeah,
John?
everybody thinks it's
Yeah.
Lost Spirits.
Which okay, we'll see.
Yeah. I'm going with D.
I'm gonna go with B.
Yeah. Let's see. There you go.
Lost spirits.
Damn,
It was
jury's
Lost
batting
Spirits.
1,000, I think.
No, I missed one.
So eventually the distillery moved to Las Vegas and included circus performances. Nice. Before closing in 2024.
What?
Now it really is Lost Spirits.
There is a rapid aging process is patented. Wow.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I call
It
bullshit.
may be patented, but it may
And
not.
it was so good that they closed.
Peter Newton said they shake weighted.
To shut it down.
Shake weight.
I love it.
Thigh mastered. If I mastered the casks.
And then they ShamWowed.
Come here, Big Bertha.
Oh my gosh. How many bottles of scotch were
That's my question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Question 6. How many bottles of Scotch were exported to the U.S. in 2024? 74 million, 132 million, 177 million, or 192 million? Wow, I mean,
2024. Gosh darn, that's so crazy.
that's a lot. Exported bottles exported. So that's blends. That's everything.
So that's all of your Johnny Walkers. That's all of your Glenmorangies.
192 seems
I'm going
really
with-
high. 74 does not seem enough.
I'm
thinking
going with
B
Stuff
again.
for Works answer E, not enough.
Not enough. Yeah,
I'm going to say C.
I'm going to be
I think B.
132 is a nice round
That's a
number.
that's, a,
I'm going
that's a
big.
lot of freaking numbers.
Go big or go home.
All right, we got it
192.
locked in. Final answers. Woo!
Winner.
Man.
The U.S. accounts. Oh, that's you. Sorry.
Go ahead.
The U.S. accounts for 9.428 approximately % of exports by volume, but represents 17.98 approximately % of sales by value, 971 million pounds, which is the world's largest market by value. India received the largest amount of
I knew India.
bottles by
India is
192.
the biggest consumer.
They got a lot
Whiskey.
more.
So the
people,
answer
too.
was 33.3 repeating, of course. Is that what I heard?
That's
Approximately, yes.
give or take.
Leroy Jenkins style.
I'm still stuck on the shake weight.
Yeah, too.
Can we get a decanter?
I have one.
A shake decanter.
I have one from.
A shake weight
a
decanter.
shake weight.
I have one from
Shut
the last
up.
Christmas. Yes, it was a white elephant.
Oh,
I got it. I think it's somewhere down here.
awesome.
Oh
Is
my
this mine
God.
now? Can I?
It's yours.
Okay. Which Scotch distillery was the first to have the capability to produce a blended Scotch whiskey on site with their own distillate?
I know this one.
A. Ardnamurchan.
I do too.
B. Bunhaven. C. Glenfarclas. Or D. Loch Lomond. Scotch distillery to have the capability to produce a blended Scotch on site.
Mm-hmm.
So they have
I
to
got to go with
two distillers on site?
I'll get,
This
I take the
particular
high road,
distillery
take
has
the low road.
many.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that gives it away. All right.
Yeah.
So it's got to be some place that has lots of distilleries on one piece of property.
Yeah, they have to be able to produce grain whiskey and malt whiskey.
Oh.
Right. So, I mean, they don't have
Tricky.
lots of distilleries. They run multiple mash bills through their stills.
But that
And,
that's
well-
that's not it. It's multiple stills.
Yeah.
Multiple different, essentially different distilleries.
They have column stills and pot stills.
It's
there.
it's Loch Lomond. Come on,
Yep,
let's go.
it's D.
It's D.
That's
The
it.
distillery was able to do this
Let's
because they had both pot and column stills on site in the early 1990s, which has become more common at Scotch distilleries. So,
That's correct.
There you go.
Yeah.
yep. Because yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Uh-oh.
Oh. Don't
Okay.
look.
Nobody saw that.
No, I saw that.
Question 8: Which Scotch distillery did not have a license to import medicinal whiskey to the U.S. during Prohibition?
Oh.
So they did not have a license. A. Ardbeg, B. Colilla, C. Lagavulin, or D. Lafroig.
If anyone in the chat misses this one,
I think there's
you must have been drinking.
there's one newer distillery here. So 1928.
I wasn't
29?
looking when the answer
When did-
came
when-
across the screen.
When did Prohibition kick? Was that 29? 28? Like that?
Is this a trick question on the
29.
plate on the word medicinal?
Yes. It's gotta be medicinal, man.
Well, yeah. you-
Well, it's in quotes.
It's for your
so-
glaucoma.
You
Right.
couldn't import
Thanks,
whiskey or
Parker.
alcohol. Yeah.
Well, we know it's not D.
Yes.
It's got to be
I think everybody's saying B.
B.
So
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, I'll be damned.
The term "the real McCoy" was used by bootleggers to describe the unadulterated whiskey, much of it Scotch, transported by William Bill McCoy. So Colilla was the correct answer.
The
on that
real
one.
McCoy. Is that like a saying? It's not
Yes.
from this.
Julio
right?
gave
Yeah.
us the answer.
It is from
1919.
this.
Oh, really? That's
Yep.
interesting.
There
He's
you
the
go.
real McCoy.
Yeah.
1933.
It's the real
this is-
McCoy.
And enough people were drinking that they all knew what you were talking about.
Yep.
Mark,
Damn
you want
it,
me to
Jim,
read
I'm a
this for you?
doctor.
Exactly.
Mark, can you see this?
Which, yeah, I sure can. Question 9. I'm waiting for it to catch up on the other screen is what I was hoping to do. But which active Scottish distillery has the highest yearly production capacity? A. Cameronbridge, B. Glenfiddich, C. Griven, or
I think
D.
it's
Loch
Girvan.
Lomond?
It's like
Girvan?
Rivian, but Grivian.
I think it's supposed to be
Grivian?
Girvan.
Griven.
Grivian.
So
There you go.
highest yearly production capacity.
So it's got to be
I would think B.
a grain, right? It's got to be a grain.
Well,
because they're using.
I'm
column
going to go
stills.
back with D because I
Well,
know
Loch
that Loch
Lomond, then.
Lomond is cranking out tons of different distillate, right? I think they have 12 stills on site or something like that.
Yeah, they got a
It
lot.
can't be. It can't be Loch Lomond twice, though. Come on.
Uh,
I'm going. I'm
Okay,
gonna go
that's
with.
what I'm going with.
Oh,
I'm gonna
some
go with
people are
B.
saying
I'm gonna say C because that's a grain distillery.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, I'll go to C.
Girvan.
yeah. Then it is. That's
what.
and not to
and
mention
do
never
they-
even heard of it.
Is that a Diageo?
Well, it's Girvan.
Oh, it's Girvan. Girvan. Okay, Girvin.
Yeah, it's misspelled.
All right, it's okay. So, what C's the answer, right? Oh, it's not.
Cameron Bridge. It's annual.
Cameron Bridge is a grain distillery too, though.
Yes,
Apparently. Jesus, look
Did
at
anyone
that
say
place.
that?
130
No.
million liters, over 30 million gallons. It's close.
Jeez.
A Girvan is a close second at 115 million liters.
I had no idea. It just goes to show you, like,
Jesus.
there are so many main names
Right.
we know, but there's so many unknown. Well, they're unknown to us, but they're scattered. Like, there's so many distilleries over there.
So that means they're producing like 500,000 liters of distillate every day.
That's
It's
crazy.
getting exported to
Look
India.
at the size of that place.
My God.
They're contracted with India.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, and the question is, do they provide the alcohol for hand sanitizer
Sure.
and everything
Right.
else?
I mean,
Oh,
So I will tell you,
Right,
that
it's-
we use at our manufacturing site, we use thousands of liters of ethanol in manufacturing, and they got to make the ethanol somewhere. And why can't it be Cameron Bridge? I mean, because
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's got
they're
to make
making
it, I
enough
guess.
of it to do something with it.
well,
So,
they
ahead,
put
so
their-
you're not like getting a carload of Lagavulin in?
I mean, they're using ethanol for gas. as
Andrew,
well.
can you sign for this train car full of Scotch that just
Yeah,
came in?
I'd love that.
Is it me?
go ahead.
Question 10. Which Scotch distillery burned down multiple times before the new distillery, which still produces
Ooh.
today? I mean, there's
That's like 3 or 4 of those, right?
there's a lot of them.
That's a broken record.
A. Kilhoman, B. Royal Lochnagar, C. Speyburn, and D. Tormore.
So why? I mean, mothballed, obviously, but why so many like fires?
Well,
There's a
Well,
lot of them.
Well,
Gotta
Andrew,
heat
why
that
don't you
stuff to make
explain
whiskey.
how ethanol is flammable?
yes,
And everybody used to smoke.
Oh shit!
and there's that, but also
Insurance.
you're heating these stills with either coal or wood or gas or whatever, putting that
Fire.
flammable solvent there. Yeah, ethanol is. So
And I'm going to guess that there weren't the best like safety
Safety
practices in like the
protocols.
1850s.
Yeah,
They
right?
had no Everwinds there.
yeah, you'd have the cigarette hanging out of your mouth when you open the still to check to make sure it's all gone. Yeah, things can be.
All right,
bad.
so I have no clue on this one. I don't know.
I'm going to say
D.
B.
You
I
think
like
I'm
Royal?
D.
going Royal Lochnagar as well.
I don't know. I don't think it's Kilholman. I don't think it's Speyburn. It's either B or D.
I don't think
See
it's
what you got.
Kilholman. I'm going D.
I'm gonna go D as well.
B.
Oh, yeah.
Got it.
Damn, you came back.
Royal Lochnagar, the original distillery, burnt down 3 times.
3 times.
Once possibly by a competitor. That's how you know you're doing it right.
There you go.
The new, air quotes, distillery has survived since 1845 and has a royal warrant.
Wow. So how did everybody do? I think I
need to
did
keep
pretty good.
track.
I think I missed 3.
Were they burning that distillery down like every couple of years? 1845 is pretty
It's a long
old.
time ago.
I think I'm
Tom
lucky if I
R.
busted 50.
Yeah, we finally got it nailed down. And so the new distillery is only 145 years old.
Right? They built it. They
150
built this
years
one out of stone instead of straw.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so Tom R got 8 of 10. That's really good.
You're
Malt
crushing,
Minion,
Tom.
7 out of 10. What'd you guys get?
I didn't. I never keep track. I need to, but
I know I got the last one.
Maybe
Right?
50%.
I got them all right.
As far as I know, because I only remember the last one, I got 100%.
See, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
I like it.
All right. Shots of White Walker for everybody.
Shots of White
Mark,
Walker.
I'll save you yours.
Let's
you can have mine, Sean. I'm a good guy.
let's give a couple patron wheels out. We haven't done that in a while. It's been a few weeks since we've been live. So
Yeah.
What
Mark,
are you giving out? The White Walker?
White Walker it is. No, we'll give something out. We'll just do we'll pick it.
Well, if they like Pete, this cornucopia
That's
of
good.
Curiosity is really nice.
Yeah, we'll give a glass of that and then a glass of
I killed that one.
11-year-old 108.43.
how about if we got a little bit left of that Virginia Distillery bottle. We'll give away that too. So
All right, so one of each.
Yeah.
Yep, one of each.
One, yeah. So
Mark, you're
104.
gonna have
You
to
know
hold
what?
on because I don't think I
Hold
have
on.
you on next scene. What?
We should give away summer drams.
Oh, that's a
What
great.
are we
call.
thinking?
We have Orchard House right there.
You guys are like, let's give out the heavy peated stuff.
Right, it's summertime. We're not drinking it.
Well, Orchard House and the Virginia. Virginia's great for
Yeah,
summer.
yeah, that one's a good one.
All right, we'll do those two.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mark, stand by. Because I don't have you for that one.
Mark disappeared.
Come on.
It's weird.
Do we need to do something different with the wheel this time? So it gets
Yeah, we'll
different people?
remove them. Remember last
You
time?
got all the people in there?
Yeah, I do. All right, let's see who wins this one. So this is for the Orchard House.
Boom.
All right.
Christopher,
Nice job.
congratulations.
Mejia? How do
Mejia?
you pronounce that?
Mejia?
Yeah.
Mejia. That's one of our PUBG
Proud
guys.
rollers.
It is.
There you go.
I removed him, so let's get the next one. This is for our Virginia bottle. And if it's one of our patrons that has it, maybe we'll spin it again. Stuart. I don't think Stuart
No,
does.
Stuart hasn't won in a long time. So yeah,
There you
let's
go.
go with Stuart. All right, great.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Very cool. All right. Well, there you go.
Thanks, guys.
2 wins. Nice job, everybody. Eric
Awesome.
Wade 10 for 10, by the way. So he is the official trivia master tonight.
Yep. Sounds good.
Somebody's got to win.
Mark, thanks
Well,
for
he's
joining us
executed.
remotely. It was fun. You look the same.
Yeah. I don't know what happened there. I'm watching the replay so I can see the chat, and Stuart just won. There's about a 20-second delay, so it's kind of interesting. But
That's good.
good job, Eric.
Nice job, Stuart.
Well, guys,
Jesus.
fun topic. Interesting show as always. Andrew, Dr. Scott,
Yeah, that was a
whoever
good topic.
it is.
Yeah.
Mark, safe travels coming back this weekend, and
Yep. I'll see you guys this weekend.
we'll have another topic next week.
Sounds
like
like a
it.
plan.
All right.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
everyone.
Thanks
See
for
ya.
joining, everybody.
3, 2, 1.